Hello, folks. This is your host, Tammy Turner, and you are now listening to the Tiara Talk Show. We bring you rare interviews with the makers of Disney magic. Whether they be singers, actors, Imagineers, animators, they've all made their mark on the Disney name. To find out more about the show and other episodes, head to our official website at www.thetiaratalkshow.com. Be sure to look below at the show notes in the Show More section for links to our Twitter and Facebook pages, including videos and websites mentioned in the following interview. Photos and audio clips that are featured in the show belong to their rightful owners and are used for educational purposes only. All guest opinions are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the opinions of the Tiara Talk Show or the host. The Tiara Talk Show is not associated with the Disney Company. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's episode, and from all of us here at the Tiara Talk Show, have a hoop-de-doo day. I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guest, actor, mime, zombie extraordinaire, Doug Jones, to the show. Welcome, Doug.
Actor, mime, zombie extraordinaire. That's like, who else gets that kind of introduction? Really? Thank you.
I have no idea. Maybe the Walking Dead people. I don't know.
But yeah, it's the mime thing thrown in there. That's a kickback to my early days with the white face and the paint on, the painted lines under my eyes and not talking and. Yeah.
Our Disney listeners will recognize you as the misunderstood but very funny zombie Billy Butcherson in Disney's 1993 cult classic Hocus Pocus, which celebrated its 20th anniversary last year. Yay!
Oh, yay. And that was so much fun. We had a little reunion screening at the Disney Studio lot in Burbank. And oh my gosh, it was such a magical day. I got to tell you, it was.
Yeah, you have Kathy Najimy there, Thora Birch, Vanessa Shaw, Omri Katz, and you and other people who also worked on the film as well. What a special event.
It was. Yeah, we had our head writer, producer, David Kirshner. We had my makeup artist, Tony Gardner, who from Alterian Studios, who designed the Billy Butcherson zombie makeup look on me. He and his cohort at the time, Margaret Prentice, she did They both did my makeup together. Amazing time to see everybody again 20 years later at the same lot where we filmed it at. And then these fans came out for this. Now, of course, me not being like, I don't have my thumb on the pulse of how people find information out. So I have no idea how anybody even heard about this screening. But I think a lot of D23 people or people that are tapped into that maybe. But to have an audience, it was just a sellout crowd. We had to add a second screening just because it was oversold. Between the two screenings, we had a little time on the courtyard at the studio outside, and they had a little museum building set up with you could walk through with a lot of artifacts from the movie, costumes, props. The book was in there. It was so fun, and then photo ops galore. Well, on the courtyard, a lot of us stood out in the middle there and just like greeted fans. It was very, very casual. No real structure to that part of the day. And just we had cosplayers coming dressed as the Sanderson sisters. We had just a lot of people who had brought their original VHS copy from home for all of us to sign it. Oh, they gave out 20th anniversary posters that Bette and Sarah and Kathy and I were on. So we were signing a lot of those that day as well. And but I tell you, it was the comments that I got from the fans that really was just almost tear-jerky for me, because I can't tell you how many people teared up while talking to me. I think when we've grown up with a movie, when something is a part of our childhood and helped shape who we are today, we do have an emotional reaction to that piece of art, whatever that is. And Hocus Pocus was very much that for a lot of people. And 20 years later, I was hearing, people saying that I grew up with this movie, and now my daughter and my son are watching it every year. I've taught them, how to watch Hocus Pocus every year at Halloween. So it's like the second generation is starting with it now, which is just so lovely to hear that it's only gaining in popularity every year instead of fading like most movies do.
Because it didn't do too well when it was first released in 93, but, considering the competition and the fact that it became a cult classic was just amazing, because I remember seeing it when I was in elementary school, and I just loved it. It was, and I never heard of it before. I was like, what is this? I've never heard of this before. I'm glad you guys had a good time, though. That's exciting.
Oh, yeah, we did miss you, Tammy. But, we also, I think we owe the success of Hocus Pocus to television for sure, because when it opened in the box office, just like you said, in 1993, they opened it in July that year. A tough time to open a movie of any sort, let alone a kid's Halloween film, which is the wrong time of year for it. But it's people like you that turned the movie into a success because of TV airings and finding a connection with somebody in the film or the storyline or the brother-sister relationship, or finding Binks the cat to be cute, or as many young ladies have told me. I mean, I can't even tell you how many young women have told me that I was their first screen crush. Isn't that adorable? And I played a zombie. What does that say about? But it is adorable because they did design Billy to look like a zombie, but they wanted him to be attractive in some way. So he kind of had a sort of a Victorian era rock star thing going on, It was Winifred poisoned Billy and sewed my mouth shut so that I would not tell her secrets in the afterlife. That's why I went through most of the movie with those leather stitches through my mouth, because she put them there 300 years before when she killed me.
How dare she?
So, well, right, and so you can imagine, you go through most of the movie thinking that I'm a bad guy, that I'm, because Winifred woke me up to go on her mission of evil to retrieve her book from the kids and wreak havoc and eat children and or suck the life out of them. So you thought I was a bad guy for most of the film, and then until I finally grab a knife from Max when I've got him in the cemetery there, cut the stitches of my mouth open, and finally blast out, "Wench! Trollop, you bucktooth, mop-riding firefly from hell!" I had a lot of pent-up anger toward Winifred. After 300 years, I had a lot to say to her. And so you find out in that moment that I'm really a champion for the kids, and I want those witches, dead as much as they do.
Although you do show that you really do like Sarah.
But I love Sarah, that's for true. I wouldn't mind having her back, that's true. But it's Winifred mostly. I want her dead.
And to my understanding, by the end of the event, Hocus Pocus 2 was officially announced by the Disney company. So were you and the cast told about the news before the screening or during the screening?
The rest of the cast took it as a surprise, but I did have an inside track on when I was working on a movie called The Watch with Ben Stiller, Vince Vaughn, Jonah Hill. It's a silly comedy where aliens have taken over like this neighborhood, and the neighborhood watch team fights back. That would be those three very funny comedians. While I was working on that movie, makeup artist Tony Gardner was helping with the creature effects makeups on that movie. Tony told me, "Oh, Doug, keep this hush-hush, but there's talk of a Hocus Pocus 2. And, of course, I gasp, I inhale, I exhale, I run around in circles, I flap my hands. And I said, I've been hoping for that. Well, what? And he said that, that he and David Kirshner had been sort of like helping put together a pitch meeting to take to Disney Studios to pitch this idea, the storyline, the what would happen. And a part of that pitch meeting was getting the full-size Billy Butcherson replica that was on display at Alterian Studios, the creature shop that made me up. They have like a full-size dummy of me. And they put it on wheels and rolled it through the offices at Disney on the Disney lot. Tony told me that when they were going through the cubicle areas to get to the meeting rooms, people were like, bobbing their heads up and down over their little cubicle walls, going, "Oh my gosh, it's Billy!" The pitch meeting apparently went very well. And that's what David Kirshner then was talking about last October at the 20-year anniversary. He finally announced it in public that they had been talking about this. Now, what format it would come out in as a theatrical movie, that's how they originally pitched it. But I think the Disney people, he said that they might be leaning more toward making it a television event.
I heard a rumor about a Broadway production.
I did not hear anything about that. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I think that would be very interesting. And Bette Midler was already on Broadway for a play. Yeah. Kathy Najimy has been on Broadway before, and so is Sarah Jessica Parker.
Right, they're all
Holy cow!
Now there was another. Let's address another recent rumor when Tina Fey announced that Hollywood Reporter put a big story out about Tina Fey producing a Hocus Pocus sequel. I think that Daily they did not. I'm not sure how the rumor got out there, but I think Daily Variety cleared it up. And
she's producing a different film about witches,
right.
But it was suggested that it might be Hocus Pocus, but it wasn't, and then that rumor is cleared up. But a lot of fans were like really upset because Tina Fey is such a genius at making films that actually sound like a great combination.
It did, and it does. Well, whatever Untitled Witch project for Disney she's working on, it will be genius because she is genius, right? So
absolutely, yes.
That'll be dandy. But as far as a Hocus Pocus sequel, I don't know what characters from the original film would reprise and come back. Or if they're going to play the 20-year difference, like, have the kids grown up and have kids of their own now. And I don't know. But the one thing I do know is that they can dig me up any time, and I'm still a dead guy in a makeup, and I'm going to look exactly the same because no matter how much any of us in the cast have aged, you put that mask on me, I'm going to look exactly the same again. So that's good.
Oh, you age so gracefully, though, Doug. Don't you worry about it.
You're very kind, Tammy. Thank you, my love.
Can you talk a little bit about your audition for the film?
Oh, how fun was that? Most auditions for movies take place like in a casting office. You've got like a desk and a couple of chairs and a casting lady sitting there going, all right, now we're on page 3 and go. This was at a dance studio. Director Kenny Ortega, of course, having a background as a dance choreographer, a very renowned one. And before this, of course, he directed the movie Newsies. Big, huge musical with humongous production numbers in it and the whole 9 yards. So knowing that he was directing this, it was like, okay, this is going to be a special movie for sure, especially when it comes to a physical actor like me. So when this audition happening in a dance studio was like, no, I see where we're going with this. So originally, Billy was written with only one line in the movie, one word, actually. That line that I riffed on a minute ago where I cut my mouth open and finally talked for the first time, that was kind of a rewrite we did on the set, on the day, because I wasn't comfortable with the script being me cutting my mouth open and yelling the B word at Bette Midler. For a Disney kids movie, again, like what you were saying earlier, it's like there's some suggestive things in there, yeah, that adults will catch, but whatever. But again, just to out and out, just yell a semi-profanity at a character in a kids movie, I thought there's a better way to win the kids over when I finally cut my mouth open and reveal that I'm on their side. So at this dance studio, what Kenny Ortega had planned for us, that were we who were auditioning for Billy, basically was he wanted us to get on the far end of the dance studio and wake up from 300 years of being dead, however we wanted to interpret that. And then, come to life and end up getting up to our feet, standing up, whatever that means, and however long that takes. And then he wanted us to make our way across the dance floor, and then finally crumble down to the floor again and look up and say that one word to the Winifred character, just like pretend she was over there on the wall somewhere, kind of a thing. So basically they wanted what he was looking for was a physicality, and an interpretation of who can channel a dead guy, make him floppy, goofy, funny, charming, and yet intimidating in some way. I guess there's a slight bit of that too. Because I do hear people say over the years that Billy scared them at first. Then Kenny, of course, being a choreographer, he put on music, some kind of like a 1970s sort of like a Monster Mash kind of a song or something that had like a slow, Halloweeny sound to it. So halfway through my routine is when I was waking up, standing up, whatever, getting to my feet, and when I looked up finally and made eye contact with with Kenny Ortega and the casting director Greg Smith at the time, and a couple other people in the room, they were all doubled over laughing, throwing their heads back, slapping their knees, and the music was loud enough that I hadn't heard all that yet, and I had no idea what I was doing to earn that kind of reaction, but it was like I drove home feeling very confident about that audition, and sure enough, by the time I got home, there was a message waiting for me on the home answering machine, because we didn't have cell phones back then, that I had booked the job, and I was so excited about it. I was just so very excited about it.
And considering the fact that you've played other characters who have even more extensive wardrobe and mask and makeup.
I think for something with prosthetics involved, absolutely. Yeah, normally you're looking at 5 to 7 hours for something like that.
That's crazy.
Or, at least 3 or 4. So to do it in an hour and a half is just like unheard of. So, but they got the system down really fast, and there we go. And my arms and legs, Billy's costume, my costume was all ripped and torn and aged, having been through some decay. So they had like leg socks that I would pull on that were also made of latex foam rubber that had that same skin texture, that same old, wrinkled skin texture on it, and also gloves that went all the way up to my elbow, so they could tear my clothes and have skin showing through, and then there you go. And the final bit was to throw dust on me. I mean, they had Fuller's Earth in buckets, and so every scene we did with Billy, they would like just douse me with powdery dirt, that every time I moved or threw my head around or threw an arm in the air, that dust would fly off of me.
And then you also had that scene where the bugs come out of your mouth too, with all that dirt.
Yes, the moths. That was another. And this is before the days of CG. What CG has become, where they might just opt to, composite that in later with visual effects. Well, back in 1993, we didn't have that option so readily available, so it wasn't as refined as it is now. They did a practical job of creating a latex sheath in my mouth that would protect the moths from the moisture of my mouth and protect my mouth from the moths too. So I had a retainer holding it in the top teeth and a retainer holding it in the bottom teeth, and this plastic or this latex rubbery sheath thing was resting on my tongue. And on the roof of my mouth was a little fiberglass cup that held that Fuller's Earth, that dust, so that with little holes at the back end of it, at the backside, I could blow air through that cup, and dust would come flying out of my mouth. And then so underneath that cup, the moth trainer, a guy came to set with nets and a cage and tweezers, and he would grab these moths 3 at a time, and by the wings, and just kind of put them and hold them on them until they were in my mouth. He would let go, and they would start flooding around in my mouth, and they would then close my mouth. And the last thing was to lightly glue tack those stitches back together, so that and they were tacked together right at the breaking point where the knife was going to be opening them back up again on film. So it was a multi-step process that had to happen quickly, because moths have to stay very dry. If you ever have, unfortunately, stepped on one, you notice they turn to dust right away. They're very, very dry beasts. So the funny part was, take one. We got the system down. We went through like a dry run of this, and we got it down. So now we're going to film a take. So the moth trainer puts 3 moths in my mouth. They clamp my lips down and then start tack gluing those little stitches together, and we're ready to go. And by the time they got the last tack of glue down, the camera department had already done the clapboard and the, take one, clap, and the camera was rolling, sound was up to speed, and we were ready to go as soon as that last tack of glue, because my mouth could only hold these for so long without them getting moist. And right before Kenny yelled action, poof! A light explodes right over our heads and showers us with like a spray of electric debris. Oh no! And so we're like, oh no! So they had to fix the light and get that back on again. And meanwhile, now I'm camera ready to go. So we're waiting, and they get a ladder out. They get somebody up there to undo the old light, put the new light in. Da 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 da. And so it happened very fast, but by moth standards, it was a lifetime, because, when you've got something in your mouth that's a foreign object, your saliva glands are like, intruder, must process. So I could feel the water table in my mouth rising and rising and rising.
Oh,
so I
no.
quietly was just like to myself thinking, this is going to be a disaster. So true enough, then take 2 is ready to go, clapboard, cameras rolling, speed, and I'm still prepped from the first take before the light exploded. Well, I cut the mouth open, and I go, like that, and what comes out is a string of dust mud because it was so wet with saliva, and a moth was kind of like surfing on a string of saliva coming out of my mouth. It was kind of we would call that a ruined take. I couldn't use that one. Everybody bust up laughing, and so we had to fix it up. But take two was perfect. It worked out in the end, and we did it all without the use of CGI.
Did you have a lot of fun with the cast behind the scenes? Any inside jokes you guys had?
We all got along so very well. Yes, and of course, me being in a heavy makeup as a floppy, goofy zombie, I was kind of like a mascot for the kids. I was like a life-size doll, especially for little Thora. Little Thora Birch was only, oh gosh, I mean, they say she was 11 at the time. She was, she loved Billy. She loved me, and I loved her too. She was a little princess, beautiful girl, and so sweet, and what a talented actress she is too. I'm very proud of what her life and career has become since then. I remember the piece of footage. Entertainment Tonight ran a story on me as Billy, and they showed a piece of background footage where we kept singing. Oh my goodness! I get by with a little help from my friends. An old song from I think it's the Beatles. I get by with a little help from my friends. Yeah, I get try with a little help from my friends. Yeah. They caught Vanessa and Thora and me singing that song while waiting by a tree. Little moments like that happened all the time. And but Bette Midler I'm rarely starstruck, and but remember, I think we tend to have an emotional reaction to things that help shape us as people, right? Mm-hmm. So in my college days, when I was a little bit younger, I was a big fan of Bette Midler's. I had all of her albums, a lot of musicals, and her stage production had been recorded many times, and she had a couple albums out already, and she was just a genius, self-made act. So I was a huge fan of hers, and so then when she made it to the screen and started doing a string of Disney Touchstone comedies, one after the other throughout the 80s, she was just brilliant in all of them, and such a likable, lovable persona she always played. The public just ate her up with a fork and loved her, me included. So when I found out that I was going to be doing this movie with her, that's when I got like all jittery and starstruck, like, oh, I get to meet Bette Midler finally! Ah! About 3 years before this, it was either 1990, I think, I was at the tail end of filming a commercial campaign that I did called the Mac Tonight commercials for McDonald's. It was a crescent moon character that sang at the top of a piano, "When the clock strikes, hey, 6:30, babe, oh, ah." It was this really cool nighttime nightclub singer character, but my head was made out of a crescent moon with a face carved into it that was puppeteered by other people off stage and whatever. So this very popular TV commercial character, I did 27 commercials as that character for McDonald's. And I was about to do a string of 6 commercials being filmed in 1 week during night shoots. And there was a lot of angst on the set because a brand new advertising agency had been hired by McDonald's to take over this old character that's a different agency had created. So this is a grown-up problem that I just that I didn't even want to have to worry about. But the new agency kept wanting to have a new spin on the character and try to make him different so that they could claim that they've made him better and improved. And the thing is, the character wasn't broke. It didn't need fixing, right? So the director of the commercial and I had been with it from the very beginning. We knew how the character should be. We knew what his strong points were, what his lovable parts were. And the new agency was like arguing with the director constantly, and I was getting direction from both sides. And it was really stressful. We were doing night shoots, so one afternoon I saw a rerun of a Barbara Walters interview with Bette Midler. And it was, now this is 1990, so this is like right in the middle of her big string of huge, successful comedies with Touchstone. And I think Beaches was around that time too. So again, a huge, wonderful film. So at the height of her fame and popularity, Barbara Walters is interviewing her, and she said, "Bette, the last time I interviewed you was what'd she say, 10 years ago. And you, shortly after that interview, you went into a rehab program because you had a nervous breakdown. What makes you a better, stronger Bette Midler today than the last time I interviewed you? And Bette Midler looked at her and said, Barbara, I don't care anymore. And I was like, so I lean into my TV, I'm listening, like, what? I think we're onto something here. And Bette said, I used to be so stressed out and anxious about every element of everything I was involved in, things I had no control over, other people's departments. I was worried about, who's doing what and how's this going to affect me, and stress. She said, now I stand where they tell me to stand, I say what they tell me to say, and I do it all to the very best of my ability. And above and beyond that, I don't care anymore. And I was just like, wow, that's the answer. I feel released and better. Yay. So I went back to work that night on the Mac Tonight campaign, thinking to myself, I will do the best job I can do within the confines of what's within my responsibilities and my abilities. Other than that, I don't care. That's their arguments are their arguments, not mine. It breathed a whole new life into me and an attitude that I've carried with me ever since. So Bette Midler is responsible for, helping shape me as an actor, believe it or not, from that one interview. So now, think of it. It's 1992, actually, when we're filming the movie, and I have Bette Midler within, inches of my face. So this one night I said to her, I need to tell you a story of how you saved my life one night. And she's like, really? How? What? And I told her about this whole Barbara Walters interview, the story I just told you. And she said, really? I said that? And I said, yes, you did. And it was quite, and she said, well, that was pretty good, right? I said, yes, bet it was. It helped save a young actor. Oh, good. And then she went on to tell me that she thought I was very funny and that I had nothing to worry about anyway, and that I was delightful to watch when I was working. And I thought, my goodness, Bette Midler is telling me that I'm delightful to watch and I'm funny. This would be a great night for that light to explode on my head again, and we can just call it, and I'll die happy.
So now I have a couple of Halloween questions for you, since Halloween is coming up around the corner. So favorite Halloween candy?
Oddly enough, I used to think that it was the mini bite-sized Snickers, which are still dandy good. I would never turn one down, mind you. But honestly, I think it's because it's seasonal, and I love candy corn. And I only have it that 1 month out of the year. But you put a bowl of that in front of me, especially the candy corn that has the little chocolate end on it. Forget about it.
Now, least favorite Halloween candy.
Oh, wait. Back in my trick-or-treating days, I always kind of went whack, 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 whack when I would get anything licorice. Did not care for the licorice.
Do you have a favorite Halloween song?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. It was the Monster Mash for many years. Now I believe it is Bette Midler's version of "I Put a Spell on You." That song has so many happy memories for me laced into it that it is absolutely my favorite Halloween song.
You got to watch her perform that song. That's so cool.
I got to be in the scene with her doing it live. It was glorious. And when you're doing a musical number like that in a movie, the whole thing has to be pre-recorded. So they do what they call playback on set, where the sound guy will put out huge speakers and play back what they've already pre-recorded in a sound studio earlier. So everybody could lip sync to it if they wanted to. Bette, though, being the consummate professional, she already understood, having done many music videos in her life and many musical numbers on film. She already knew that if you sing along live with your original performance, not only it just looks so much more genuine and it matches so much better.
Did you have a most embarrassing Halloween costume that you can recall?
Oh, you know what? I not so much embarrassing, but it was the cheap way out. I think the easiest thing was cutting slits into a sheet for my eye holes and then just throwing it over. Ghosts were the easiest thing to do. Get an old sheet, ask mom which one we can trash, and cutting eye holes, and then, okay, guess I'm ready. And I felt kind of like a failure. Like I just threw a sheet over me. And other people have put a lot of work and time into this.
And favorite non-Disney Halloween film?
The Sixth Sense. That was a good psychological, twisty thriller.
Nice. That one, and I love Clue. I love the comedy version of Clue,
yes.
Tim Curry.
Yes, he was brilliant in that, yes.
Great stuff. And we could count Rocky Horror as a Halloween film.
Oh, you know what? Let's. Yes, and I'm also friends with Barry Bostwick now, who played Brad, the young fiance that was engaged to Susan Sarandon in the movie. Yeah, he and I are friends now, so I have a certain love for Rocky Horror, always have anyway, but now I feel a connection to it.
And you recently made news again with director Del Toro. He had a Reddit AMA, Ask Me Anything, and addressed the Haunted Mansion film. So he announced that he was producing the film in 2010, possibly directing it, working on screenplay, saying that they were still working on the screenplay during this AMA, but tested the design of the Hatbox Ghost on you. So are you allowed to discuss this experience, or is it just completely hush-hush right now?
Oh, well, here's the funny part of that story. I had heard for years that Guillermo del Toro was in development with a Disney's Haunted Mansion movie, and he assured an audience at Comic-Con one year that it would not be a sequel to the Eddie Murphy movies. So it was going to be his own spin on it, and da-da-da-da. So that's the last I ever heard of it, and I heard the same day you did on that Reddit AMA and all the reports of it about myself. Right, he had never talked to me about it himself personally, and I just think it's funny thing is I just worked on his movie Crimson Peak that he has coming out in theaters in October of next year, 2015. It's a haunted house type story that takes place in Victorian England, and I play a couple of otherworldly creatures in it. So, he had me filming with him in Toronto and never mentioned anything about Haunted Mansion, oddly enough. Because we were kind of, in this haunted house story up there. You would think that it might come to mind at some point. But I never did a makeup test on myself. No one ever did a makeup test on me for the Hatbox Ghost. The Disney's Haunted Mansion Hatbox Ghost makeup design was, according to that Reddit AMA, what he said was it was designed on a life cast of my head and body, which would mean that they sculpted this on a form of me that's sitting in a creature effects shop right now. So I was never called into the process personally, okay. But the design of the makeup was created on a Doug Jones life form, which means that I would be the one to wear it. Yes. Let's hope that comes through, and let's hope that I'm available when it happens for sure.
And now our last 3 questions. I always ask these to my guests. They're called the Fab Three Questions, and they're the Donald, Goofy, and Mickey ones. So we'll start with the Donald one. So as a child, what Disney film would you always like to watch over and over again?
It wasn't animated films, oddly enough. It was, it would have been like Mary Poppins. I could watch Mary Poppins again and again.
And now our Goofy question. What Disney character do you think would be your best friend if you met them in person?
Probably, I was going to say personality-wise, I like Mickey's wisdom, but you know what? I think, Goofy's just so precious. I might even go with Pluto because Pluto doesn't talk much, and I do love puppies. I just love puppies.
And now our Mickey question. If I asked you to name any Disney song at this very moment, what immediately comes to mind?
It was, I think because it was on TV just the other night. Look at this stuff. Isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? Wouldn't you think I'm the girl who has everything?
I do, Doug. You are the girl who has everything.
I love the Little Mermaid, and I think that was. I think what I loved about it too was that was kind of the resurgence of the Disney animated empire, and and all the music in that film was so good. I bought the soundtrack and I listened to it in the car over and over and over again. Even though it was a girl singing, I could personalize it. So I think that song has special meaning to me.
I'm so excited because Halloween is coming up, and listeners, as always, will be watching Hocus Pocus, including myself, so I'm sure you'll get tons of tweets about it. And also, listeners, please check out Doug's website at thedougjonesexperience.com, and also check out Falling Skies on TNT to see Doug as a cool, awesome alien who is trying to protect the humans.
We go back into production for the final season 5 of Falling Skies in September, and so next summer will be the story will come to a rousing conclusion. So I'd be looking forward to that. And in the meantime, yes, you mentioned Twitter. I love how every time Hocus Pocus goes on TV, it starts trending on Twitter immediately. If you're twittering about Hocus Pocus, include me in your tweets. I'm at actor Doug Jones there and on Instagram. Instagram and on the Tumblr, and also Facebook. If you type in @ActorDougJones, you'll find me in all those medias.
Fantastic. Thank you again for coming on the show, Doug, and we'll have to fly out on our witches' broomsticks right now.
Oh, here we go. Sisters!
Up and maybe up and die. Say goodbye. Up and maybe up and die. In Kamakoreyama. Hey, hey, I say
bye. You buck-toothed, mop-riding firefly from hell!